We're going to go ahead and bring this meeting to order. Can we please have Pastor Kelly Dupay from Faith Community Church come forward for the invocation? That will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilmember Fred Sykes. Please rise.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we want to thank you, Lord, for the privilege of living in such a great city. And Father, tonight we ask that your wisdom, the wisdom of the Holy Spirit, would come to our city council, that you would guide and direct them, Lord. Father, that you would let your blessing be poured out upon all the residents of the city of West Covina. And Lord, you would use this city not only to be blessed, but God, to be a blessing to others. So thank you, God, for what you're going to do in tonight's meeting. We ask you to bless it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge to the flag of our nation. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. City Attorney, or roll call, please. Madam.
Mayor Tui.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Sanderson. Councilmember Herford.
Here.
Councilmember Sykes.
Here.
Councilwoman Sanderson will be joining us shortly. Report out of closed session, Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Record should reflect that the City Council did hold its special closed session meeting as reflected on the notice of special meeting to consider the items as listed, those being the various conference with legal negotiations with the various employee organizations pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. The record should reflect that all members were present for the closed session with the exception of Councilmember Sanderson. The report was provided by staff. No final action was taken, and I have nothing further to report. And that concludes my report out in closed session.
Thank you. Changes to the agenda, Mr. City Manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull item number 11 off, and we'll until we have an opportunity to meet with yourself on some questions related to the waste collection fees.
No problem. Thank you. Drop down to oral communications. Our first speaker is Joanne Wilner. Joanne? Well, it's on top of, and Sandra De La Huse Bon, or Benz. Do you want to wait? Okay, I'm sorry. Sandra, would you like to go? I'm sorry. And then Greg Tuttle will be next.
Opposed, item number 6 is what I'm addressing. I just feel it's a shame, that's about the best word I can use, to have our chamber only facility open for business. We have this wonderful big banner across Glendora saying we're business friendly, and for whatever reasons we can't muster up a small building like we have for the chamber. I think chambers represent the strength of business in a city. When people come into a city, they see a sign saying the Lions are here, the chamber is here. This is, I think, sort of the fundamental thing of business in most cities. And I don't know what type of collaborative efforts have been sought to see about keeping this facility open. I understand, from the agenda that you want to rent it. Well, that could well be, but I'm thinking of a Kentucky Colonel or something like that. One more thing that we don't need on that corner. And I would hope whatever does come would be something that has to do with supporting the image of business, since we say we are business friendly. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. And since I talked to the city manager about this, this is for them to become just pure community facilities for the community. They're already owned by the community. It's not for something outside. It's just like our community center. But thank you. Greg was next. And Elsie Mespin on deck.
Good evening, Council. This is just political stuff, so nothing personal, okay? So I want you guys, we'll all be friends after it's over with, hopefully. Anyway, first of all, I was very offended in the newspaper, in the Tribune. Am I getting 5 minutes?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Anyway, the Tribune wrote a report about the developer on the building that said that when we came into this meeting, we were racial, and that we made racial slurs, and that we talked about her race. There was no talk about her race because she was Asian. It was all talked about the money and why it was being sold so cheap and why you were selling off the land. I was insulted that that would ever came up. I listened to the audio twice, and I heard nobody give a racial slur whatsoever on this, because everybody doesn't get their way, and if they're a different ethnic group, all of a sudden it's racial. Okay? That's not right. We did it for a purpose. Now, on the current recall of the count, Mr. Toohey, Hereford, and Mrs. Sanderson, I'm very, this recall is what's going to be happening throughout the other cities. I've been going to quite a few different city councils, and this good old boy stuff is coming to an end. And Mr. Brasida's found out the hard, and Baldwin Park's going to find out the hard way. We're all in this group of trying to clean up the government and stop these good old boy deals. And we all know what those are, from the signs that are off on the highway, that the billboards that people get money for. We're also aware of the tow companies and how many millions go through the cities, and we're also aware of the payoffs into the political donations for this. This has all got to stop. And we also saw this happen in Irwindale just recently, and I pulled all the records up for it. This thing has got to stop and clean up city government. Now then, with the retirement stuff, with this redevelopment, I was up at the State Assembly, like I told you I was going to. Great information up there. We celebrated the death of redevelopment. And the other thing that we did is talking to the Assembly, we found out that, they will be making groups up, and we urge them to make groups up that are going to watch over the cities that appoint special people to do special things for them, and make sure that the funds are watched and that redevelopment goes back into the state funds to help the schools and everything else. Because, not a friend of yours, but Mr. Hernandez had a state of the city state address here, and one of the things that was very interesting was to find out that the schools get 6 to 8% of the tax increments when you do the redevelopment. But now the state with Governor Brown is going to be getting 58%, which is great. Maybe we won't have to do fundraisers all the time for paper and pencils for the kids. Now, I want to make sure that maybe on this building, I don't know where this is at. I haven't found out on the building with the Asian developer, and no racial slur. But I want to make sure that this thing here has been stopped and that it goes through a better process. You had 2 bidders up here the night of the meeting that would have bid more money than her, but you guys just dropped the ball. That's not right. And I think that what you guys need to do is you need to look at yourselves and see what you're doing. Because what you're going to find out is there's a lot of people that know a lot of things that went underhanded on all the councils, not just this council, and it needs to be stopped so that we clean up our government. The pension funds are getting out of control with the city workers, with this council and everything else. We need to cut this down. These pensions are out of control. No other company offers these pensions that these cities are offering. And you're probably, if my calculation's, over $1 billion in debt in the redevelopment. I know Baldwin Park was about $240 in debt. Okay, that's small compared to what you guys were. And you got a lot of empty
Mr. Mayor,
buildings
Speaker
there.
exceeded their 5 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't watching the meter. Friends, okay?
Thank you, Greg. Elsie Messman and John Solis is on deck. John?
Mayor, council, staff, and everyone here today. My name is Elsie Messman, a resident of West Covina. And I was going to speak on number 11, but I guess that was pulled. So I'll only speak on number 9, the West Covina Dog Park. Instead of having a dog park at one of the 5 locations listed, I suggest we put doggy bags at all West Covina parks. That way everyone in the city will benefit, not just one area. Everybody wins, and everyone in the city will get a benefit from this grant. North side is not going to come to the south side to walk their dogs, or vice versa. And by the way, the dog park was voted number 15 by the residents of Shadow Oak Park, so I don't think the residents there want it. But as far as I'm concerned, I think the dog parks, that money should go to something else other than dog parks. I said people are starving to death and don't have jobs. Thank you.
Thank you, Elsie. John Solis and Linda Sarah. Linda? Okay.
Good evening.
How you doing, John?
I like that gentleman that spoke before Elsie. I don't know who he is, but I liked it. I like his character. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is John Solis, and I have been a resident of West Covina for 35 years. I would like to address agenda item number 9, the West Covina Dog Park. It is commendable that the city desires to create a park for man's best friend. I have had dogs in my home since I was 8 years old. They make trusted companions, and they protect our homes. A dog park is an amenity that would be desirable in a good economy. However, we find ourselves in an economy that still continues to struggle, and there are other priorities within our community. I must choose between the needs of my trusted companions and the needs of my community. Your staff indicates that the funding of $60,000 for the half-acre park, a rather small dog park, would come from the unspent park grant funds from Proposition A. Therefore, they're not coming from our general fund. They furthermore have indicated that the northwest corner of the lower park of Shadow Oak would be a possible candidate for locating the dog park. Although the Shadow Oak community did indicate some interest in 2006 for a dog park, that interest was a low priority. A greater priority is to have restrooms facilities at the lower park, a paved parking area, and either more shade trees or covered shelters for some of the existing picnic areas. The existing parking at the upper levels of Shadow Oak is overwhelmed during the softball tournaments that are held at the park each year. The overflow of vehicles move down to the residential areas on Stephanie and Rita Lane. I know this because I live in that area. The $60K would be better spent in improving existing facilities at our parks without an environmental impact to the community. In addition, I find it discouraging how we can find grant money to build a dog park, but we can't find any grant money or any money to finish our Veterans Memorial. It is the young men and women of our country that have protected our freedom and given us the opportunity to be able to decide whether or not we choose to have a dog park. Honor first all those Americans that have served our country, and then maybe provide for man's best friend. We did, however, leave many dogs behind in Vietnam that served us well. Thank you for consideration of this matter, and have a good evening.
Thank you, John. Linda, and then Lloyd Johnson on deck. Lloyd?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Linda Sorrell. I am a longtime resident of Walnut, so I'm your next-door neighbor. I'm very excited about your sculpture purchase program, and I've followed it closely all along the way. Walnut doesn't have a program, so I feel a personal investment in West Covina's. I'm one of the artists whose work you will see tonight. I submitted the sculpture entitled Hopscotch. It's a little girl playing hopscotch. What I submitted is a clay maquette, which is a model of what the actual bronze sculpture would be. She would be life-size. She was designed specifically for Cameron Park, so she would be the only one of her kind. There wouldn't be any copies of her in other parks elsewhere. She would just be the single one. I specialize in real-life characterizations of people and their emotions. So when you look at my little hopscotch girl, you can see on her face the joy she has in her game, but also the intense concentration she has in doing well. This is representative, of course, of the organized sports that occur throughout West Covina and all of the cities in Southern California. And it also is reflective of what is coming as she is an adult, where you love your job, but you really have to put a lot of effort in it to do well. I have designed her to be mounted on a hopscotch grid that would be slightly larger than life size. I've done this for two purposes. One is, it seems to me she would be perfect outside the community center, and people could use the hopscotch grid as temporary seating, as momentary seating while they're waiting to be picked up, while the kids are waiting for their parents, while you're waiting to meet a friend or whatever. The grid also serves the purpose of giving the children who are in the park, another way of interacting with the sculpture. They can play hopscotch with her, and this distracts them from climbing on the sculpture, hanging off of it, or whatever. So it gives them a safe way to enjoy the art. My bronzes are of the highest quality in execution and finish. They are all completed by local Southern California foundries that have a long history of establishment. They need minimal care, maybe an occasional waxing the same way that you would wax a car, and of course they last for generations. I hope you will consider my project. I hope you like my ideas, and I hope you'll give me a little bit of preference as the hometown artist. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lloyd Johnson and Loretta Kozar on deck. Loretta.
Good evening, Mayor Turi and council members. About 5 years ago, the city of Whittier adopted March the 31st as their official Welcome Home Vietnam Veterans Day. Then right after that, Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger made it official into law that the state of California would have March the 31st as the official Welcome Home Vietnam's Day for California. We were the first state in the nation to do that. Tonight I'm asking this council if they would consider adopting March the 31st as West Covina's official Welcome Home Vietnam Veterans Day. Next, what I'd like to say, a few years back, we all remember I asked for a dog park. I thought that would be great. But at this time, as being such a dog lover, I think everybody knows, I feel that maybe it is not the right time to put that money into a dog park, even though I would love to have one. I feel that maybe our other parks, maybe need things maybe a little bit more important, because a lot of residents don't have dogs, so they probably not feel the same way as I do. So I would like to see maybe if those funds could be used in a better place, even though I personally would love to see a dog park. And the last thing I would like to ask, it was in the newspaper today. When did the city decide not to sell off assets that, that the city owns, city-owned assets? It was quoted in the newspaper today that the city will not sell any city assets. And I was just wondering, when was that decided? Thank you.
Thank you, Lloyd. Loretta and John Shoemaker on deck. John.
Good evening. I am here to speak on behalf of Sherry Uwasa. I just want to say we understand the budget cuts and all of that, but I wanted you to know that we are very saddened to know that Sherry will no longer be here to work with us. She is one of the most professional women in the city of West Covina, or man for that matter. She is an employee that's dedicated and loves her job, and we loved her dearly and still do. And hopefully when you do find money, Sherry will be one of those people that you will bring back. And we wanted to let you know, I am an executive board member for the NAACP. I don't see Ronnie here, so I can't speak for the NAACP. But that's where Sherry has helped us the most in organizing the Dr. Martin Luther King Day celebration here in West Covina. And she made sure that all of the city codes for West Covina were carried out in a very professional manner. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Loretta. John Shoemaker, and we have Philip Marino on deck. Phil.
I just have a quick item. At a couple meetings, I've heard comments made about how the county would close a couple fire stations and cut the number of police officers. And I'm not aware of any study that has been done in the last 15 or 20 years. I might have not been at that council meeting. So I was wondering how I can go about getting that report or that study that says the county would do this, because I know when Councilmember Sykes asked about, at least going out and seeing what it would cost, he was shot down because, they were going to close these areas or, cut back. So I just like to see the report so I can go through it and see what's there and see what's not there. Just kind of a simple request, I hope. Hopefully. I mean, sometimes, trying to find those things can be difficult, but that's all I'm looking for. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Philip Marino and Dr. Gerald Menifee on deck.
Members of the council, members of the city staff, members of the audience. The subject, public safety, is taking too much of every West Covina city revenue dollar. My name is Philip Marino, and I have lived in the city of West Covina since 1979. 2 city departments are going to drive my city to bankruptcy. I have attached to this statement 2 news articles. Exhibit 1 is an Orange County Register article titled, OC Cities Reeling from Revenue Loss, Public Safety Costs, which was published August the 19th of the year 2011. Any West Covina citizen can use their home computer and use their Google search block and type in the following question. What percentage of a California city's budget should be spent on public safety? To get this Orange County article. Exhibit 2 is a Los Angeles Times article titled CalPERS Board OKs Lowering the Assumed Rate of Return to 7.5%, and it was published March the 15th of 2012. Before March of 2012, our city's website stated that the city had a public safety cost of 79% of city revenue for the fiscal year of 2011-2012. This month, March of 2012, many city employees, both safety and civilian, will retire. Also, the city terminated the employment of a number of city staff this month. The percentage of how much money is being spent on public safety will change as of April the 1st of 2012. So the citizens of West Covina want to know the answer to the following 3 questions. Number 1, as of April 2012, what percentage of the city of West Covina city's operating budget is being consumed by the West Covina Police Department? Question number 2, as of April 2012, what percentage of the city of West Covina's operating budget is being consumed by the West Covina Fire Department? Do the numbers given to the citizens of West Covina from questions 1 and 2 include the money that we owe CalPERS for safety members and civilian employees. 3 of the present City Council members ignored the City Manager's request to ask the county to give a cost estimate for fire services for our city. They ignored a request by City staff to look for options for providing fire protection to West Covina residents. Our City Hall staff has been decimated. As an example, the City of San Dimas has 2 code enforcement officers for a population of 33,371, and that's due to that population is from the 2010 census. The City of West Covina has 1 code enforcement officer for a city with a population of 106,098, and that's per the 2010 census. When I moved to West Covina in 1979, our city had 4 code enforcement officers. Eventually, the citizens of West Covina will lose all of their loyal City Hall staff because 3 of the present City Council members will probably contract out all of our City Hall jobs. 3 of the present City Council members do not listen to the advice and the requests of our City Manager and his staff, and that is a shame. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. We have Dr. Gerald Menifee and Joanne Wilner on deck after that. Is that okay, Joanne?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, it's time for good news. It's been my pleasure the last 35 years to provide service to my community of West Covina in a variety of ways. First as a member of the school district, and then as a member of Rotary. But the one I've had the most pleasure, I believe, has been this past year as a member of your Public Arts Commission. I'm talking about the item addressed here as item 2 and item 10. I know we have to do things, and so we do them. But it has been a real pleasure to join the other 6 members of that Public Arts Commission, including 2 of your planning commissioners, in doing some things that we think are very worthwhile to our community. And we are pleased that you let us do that. We had in the item 10 issue 64 respondents, 64 artists that each did a magnificent job of trying to convince us that they had the best art for our community. Our group worked really hard at dwindling that down to 16, and then from 16 down to the final 2 that we're offering to you tonight. So it has been a distinct pleasure of mine, and I want to thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Joanne Wilner and Irene Fleck on deck. Irene, I know.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and fellow council persons and audience. First off, I just want to comment that what has been said tonight is really very on the point on most of these issues. As to number 2, the ordinance related to the commissions, I was both reading our municipal code as it was reflected and referred to in the document that I was reading on the Siri or Sire or however it's pronounced website. And I am concerned about, 1, the Senior Service Commission being just anybody as a part of the community service. Under the current pre-adoption rule, somebody that would be on the senior commission would have to be at least 50 years old, which is what the senior is declared to be in the city of West Covina, since it varies with wherever you are. And I think just to have, in general, community service commissioners that do not, in particular, represent the senior element or the senior focus would be a loss, and therefore I think that should be changed. To have the public arts as a part of the Planning Commission, and I know it originally was before the Planning Commission and the Public Arts, where the Public Arts was created, seems like there are elements that also require qualifications as defined for the Public Arts Commission, which you are eliminating. There are no qualifications other than being of age and living in the city to be on a commission, but this one does take, I think, some special education along the line of arts and different aspects of it, and therefore should be reconsidered as to just how that's going to be dealt with, because when that was first created, it was the Planning Commission, if I recall correctly, that decided they, as a planning commission thinking of planning, did not have the talents required to really deal with arts. So somehow or other, I think there needs to be some reconsideration there. And I don't know that expanding it and requiring, whether it be one person, two people on that commission to be an art specialist, which is very broadly defined according to our current. But there's also some other elements regarded to the commissions. I think no payment should be made for months in which there are no meetings. We're trying to save money here, and if I read correctly, at some point along this, oh my God, my time's going fast, there was to be payment regardless of how many meetings there were. And that should be also effective with current commissioners, because someplace in the document it says with new commissioners and not people who are currently serving, and so it can't take effect now. And also, if you don't reappoint somebody when they all expire in next year, they continue on until you do appoint, so that person would still be collecting old pay. Something else, which it shouldn't be. I think that there should be a further reduction in the costs. And to make this really relevant and a point for credible as a council, I think you should start by reducing your own benefits, that you are all public servants, and as such, I think we cannot afford to give you pensions. I don't think you're entitled to them. I don't think you're entitled to most of the perks and bennies that you do currently get, and that also there shouldn't be compensation when you don't attend, and that it should be reduced, the monthly that is being paid should be reduced to more of a public service stipend. And you should get, though, auto, of course, and other city business. Oh, my goodness, really. Just let me say one other thing regarding item number 10, please, and that is this business of $19,000 for the installation of these artworks for what appeared to be a small base to put these small-ish sculptures seems way out of line. Thank you.
Thank
I
you
had
very
more,
much.
but that's it.
You owe us 46 minutes next time, or 46 seconds. 46 seconds. Thank you. Irene Fleck, and then Alfred Williams. Can someone man Alfred's camera when he comes up here?
That's great.
Irene will, apparently.
Good evening. I'm going to do my fun things first. The West Covina Library, of course, is doing some really great things, and April is going to be a very special month because it's National Library Month. And the theme this year is You Belong at Your Library, with the little ad type thing. The first thing that we're having is our first annual mixer was so successful last year. We're now going to have a second annual mixer on April the 4th from 5:30 to 7, and everyone is invited to come see what's going on at the library, meet old friends, hopefully meet some new friends, and just have a real nice time. And then the second thing is our biannual book sale, which is Saturday, April 14th, And as I always tell you, there's some really good bargains there for not most of us, but a lot of us are still bookies, and we still like books, and they're kind of fun. But in addition to that, on that same day, Saturday, April 14th, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., the library is celebrating National Library Week. And they're going to have some really fun things out in the courtyard. And it's going to feature, see what your library can do for you. Get to know your library staff, enjoy games, giveaway, and food, try out new technology gadgets, including Kindles, Nooks, and tablets. Shop the Friends of the Library Spring Book Sale. But it's amazing how they're hopping in on the e-world. And this stuff is going to be available just like all the computers are. And we think this is a wonderful way. The library is one institution that builds up instead of tears down. So I urge you to come to both of these things. Then, to the other subject, I'm wondering how you can get answers to your previous questions. I've asked a number of questions about the medical condos. And just two of them is what the fee is for the leasing of the parking lot. The medical condos is only purchasing about 2/3 of that piece of property, 2/3 an acre, and the rest of it's going to be leased for the parking lot. What is the leasing fee? How much will the builder have to pay for the parking lot use? And then my second question is, what is so precious about that tiny little piece of property that the city has been trying to develop it for 25 years and spending a fortune on potential development? They were kidding the other day about the fact there must be a body buried there, but I'm sure there's no body because you wouldn't be digging it up. So anyway, I'd like to know how to get answers to questions. I have a lot of others.
That's where we have Jimmy Hoffa.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Alfred William, that was just a joke, by the way, in case there's any Jimmy fans, that was just a joke. And Bill Rose on deck. Bill Rose, our last speaker. I don't know where Bill went. Sorry, Bill. I see you hiding. Go ahead, Alfred.
Good evening, council, staff.
Can we start him over? I don't want Alfred.
Okay.
Make sure you get your full 5.
No, he hadn't started, so. I'm here on item 9. As you all know, and many people come up here already said that the Shadow Oak Park, when we had a meeting on what to put in the park, dog park came up by 2 people, and it was turned down by the residents. So I don't think it's a good idea. I looked at the parks that have been suggested, and if you look at Shadow Oak, you're taking up part of the area that is supposed to be used by, I guess, picnickers whenever we get any trees or anything there. But right now the park is used quite a bit by both joggers, walkers, and people walking with dogs. We also have quite a few paseos around, which people go and let their dogs run in that. So we have areas down there already. But I think we need to look at other things, such as how far would somebody actually drive to go to a dog park? And I know some people, I know Lloyd, he's a great dog lover. We've had some statements about that. But, he'll probably drive to San Dimas over there. I'm not sure. But one thing that I didn't see that the staff didn't address was why not looking at the landfill area up there. I think there are plenty of places up there that might be suitable. We only looked at parks that we're taking away from one group to provide for another one. Up there, I'm sure there are some flat areas up there, especially since we can put a golf course up there. There are a few flat areas up there that can be shared. And then I don't think anybody would object to it. It's new. It would be going in. It has very few houses close to it. Why wasn't that considered? You took at least 3 parks or 4 parks in the south side to address putting a park in, the dog park in. Why not the landfill area up there? It would work great, I think. And as I said, you need to address how far will people actually travel to come to that. This is the farthest point for a park, and well, not quite farthest, but one of the farthest for putting a dog park. So I don't think it should be there. The other thing I want to bring up is, in the last meeting, you, Mr. Tui, brought up the fact that we have over 400,000 plus visitors to Big League Dreams. Now, I start thinking about that. I think they charge $3 or something to go into the park. I'm not sure about the numbers. It's been a while since I've been up there. But if we had $3 or something to go into the park, we should be bringing in just $1.2 million just from the 400 plus, because I'm sure some of those get in free. We should be bringing in 1.2 million. Okay, and we have a bond that we're paying on, and I think, and I'm sure, not sure, but I know you or the staff will definitely correct me, that we're paying $3.5 billion on a bond. And that leaves us about $2.3 million short somewhere. Now, I don't know what we're making off of the other concessions and stuff, but plenty of people have asked for a financial report on Big League Dreams and how it's doing. I have asked, others have asked, and nobody seems to be able to get one of these reports. So I think we need to start providing the public with what Big League Dreams is actually bringing in and whether or not we're meeting our bond requirement. Thank you.
Thank you, Alfred. Bill Rowe is next. And Alfred, on the one thing on the admission, in the contract it calls for us to get $1 per admission. So we get, yes, after a certain time. Bill Rowe.
Mayor, City Council. Hey, I don't have really anything to say. It's been 7 years since I addressed City Council. At that time, a doctor had told me that I didn't have much time to live. And I'm still here, and my health is really good.
And you're back, Bill.
Huh?
And you're back.
Yeah, I lost 50 pounds, too. Isn't that great? You know, exercise, great diet, and, you know, positive prayer really does a lot of good. But now that my health is getting to a point now where I feel comfortable to come back out to the community, one of my greatest joys back at that time was to give something to the community, to whatever I was appointed or, you know, volunteered to do within the arts or, you know, commissions and whatever. And, you know, now that I do have time, you know, God's given me a little extra time. I went back to see that doctor a year back, and I said, I'm still here. And he fell to the floor and asked me why. I can't tell him. I just had work. But what I'd like to do is I've cleared my schedule now starting from April on Tuesdays. I'd like to come back and in some meaningful way get back involved with my friends here in the community and do something of meaning. And I know these aren't too good of times. You know, the city's in really desperate. You know, your job is not too easy. I know it's not good time to be in office. But you know what I learned over these 7 years? You have to live fearlessly. You know, and you have to give something back to humanity, you know, so, you know, as long as you're vertical, just keep doing what you're doing. You know, I have a policy. I will never put anybody down. But, you know, there's one thing I want to ask right now. This item number 10, you know, with the city, you know, I champion the arts. I love the arts. You've known that ever since I went to the city. But $60,000 seems to be quite a bit of money right now while the city is in such, could you put that on hold for a little while? You know, I think that would be something that you should really take a look at, since you've had to lay off so many of my friends that I've known for such a long time, and I know it's been hard for you to do that. But think about that one. And I'll be here on Tuesdays. You know, I'm going to enjoy sitting here with Lloyd and, you know, everyone else. And anyway, I'm back. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. That concludes our oral communication. This to address. Go ahead, Councilwoman Sanderson. I just wanted to say, to address some of the issues, I believe it was John Solis who brought up the Veterans Wall, and I believe the Veteran Committee, and I don't know if Lloyd's talking right now, but our Veterans Committee made it a point that they wanted to privately raise the money. And I want to make sure that was what they wanted to do and work on it, and we've been working with them that. Most cities that are doing the walls are doing it privately. The city of Laverne, the city of San Dimas has raised so far $100,000, and they built the first portion of their wall. I believe Laverne's up to $30,000. I'm not sure what we exactly have, but we have somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000 in that fund that has been raised. So I'm saying we are working on that, John, and on top of that, there's been a lot of people who have offered to donate all their services, so we may only have to buy the cement or the blocks. The actual work will be done by citizens within our community who are specialists in that field. So we are working on that. I do agree with Lloyd to do a Welcome Home Vietnam. Sorry we did not address that, but we won't miss it in the future, and I know Lloyd is on our Veterans Committee. To address Phil's question, Phil said that we may have to contract out the rest of City Hall and that we were wrong on that potentially, but the part he was talking about was contracting out police and fire, which is 80% of all the workers at City Hall. I just don't understand how it's okay to potentially contract out 80% of all the workers, but there's a question on the other 20%. I'm just a little confused there, and maybe I misunderstood you, Phil, to give you the benefit of the doubt there. And I do appreciate everyone coming out. This is very difficult times. The bronze statue money or the art in public place is paid for by the developers. They have to pay 1% of their total permit fees go in a fund to build art. Again, all those funds are tied with state laws that if you don't spend the money, you have to give it back to the person who paid it. If it's not used for the purpose you collected it for. It's similar to park development fees. When you collect park development fees and you charge a person building homes $1 million to build homes, if they do not spend the money, and I think the thing is a 5-year period, you have to reimburse the developer. And that was a question that happens. The Park 84 bond money that we're looking to do the dog park was money you already have on your property tax that you've been paying for years. We have money allocated to do. That's why we're looking at doing a dog park. No matter where we do a dog park, it's like a lot of our facilities, and I understand people say you may have to drive one place or the other. We only have one senior center in West Covina. We're not going to have one on the north side, central, west. That's just how it is. The soccer league who's here, we only have one soccer league that is in the city of West Covina. We have another league that serves portions of our city, and that's Covina Hills Soccer and the site on Walnut AYSO. But that is the only one in our city, so no matter what, we have a lot of facilities. We only have one gym, so we have a lot of facilities like that, no matter how much we may want. Some of the parks we actually are looking at doing the dog park, and I understand the comments on Shadow Oak Park. Some of the other parks, it was one of the #1 items requested at a community meeting from the people that live around that park. And I think those numbers will be discussed. We had those community meetings when we were looking at doing community development block grant money we have available for Palmview Park because they're in a census tract area, and Del Norte Park, some of those areas qualify. So we had those meetings with them because that's restricted money. We have $800,000 in community development block grant money for doing projects in areas where there are census tracts. If you don't live in a census tract, we can't spend that money there. No matter what. So, but I appreciate everyone's questions. Councilwoman Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. I had a couple questions first of staff quickly on some of the items that were brought up by the residents. One of the ones was in reference to the art of public places, and the mayor had just stated that the group for the veteran wall wanted to raise the funding. But my question of staff, if they were even interested, if the funding from art and public places could be used for the memorial wall. I don't know what the restrictions are on that. Maybe you could just get back to me with that answer, as well as maybe I can talk with the group from the Veterans Wall if something like that might even be possible.
I'd have to go back and revisit that. I know we've asked that question before. I just don't recall the answer.
Okay, yeah, I don't recall it either. So thank you very much. And then the next one, there was something about a news article. I apologize. One of the speakers brought up about not selling off city assets. Mr. City Manager, did you have a response quickly to that item?
Multiple times we receive unsolicited offers on properties, and we discuss those issues. I can't tell you the exact year those were raised or the timetable those were raised, but the proposal that we're bringing tonight is to consider the use of those buildings that are sitting empty currently along the same lines as we use the community center down here on this floor next to the City Hall. Okay. But that is the goal that we're trying to accomplish here.
Did you read the article? Because I didn't read it.
No, I did not.
Oh, okay. So maybe we can get an answer for Lloyd after that. Then I'd like to address a comment made by Mr. Moreno in reference. He stated 3 present council members in reference to the looking at options of the fire department. Sitting up here, I think all of you know, at come to meetings, it can be frustrating to sit here and be the end of attacks, not only attacks, but attacks that aren't true. So I don't want to assume anything, but there are not 3 council members up here that supported that item. I actually looked into the options, whether that was right or wrong. I just wanted to make that clear for the public. And lastly, I would just briefly like to touch on the $1 billion redevelopment debt thrown out at every meeting lately. Just want to clear up quickly, this redevelopment debt is not like your credit card debt. Redevelopment debt is paid for by the agency that created the debt or the project that created the debt. As much as people don't want to accept the fact that redevelopment and the city of West Covina are 2 separate entities. Yes, they are governed by the governing agency that sits here. So yes, we are responsible for the agency and we are responsible for the city of West Covina. However, they are 2 separate funding sources. Okay, to sort of just briefly explain that this $1 billion is comprised of interest of the life of a loan, possibly 30 years, as well as debt from 1978, in which I was in kindergarten. Okay, we're still dealing with this debt. You have projects or wish list items. You have a $460 million wish list on this $1 billion so-called debt that's being thrown out as it's a credit card debt. It is not. Okay, the city of West Covina has a great staff and a great council, and we work very, very hard to make sure that your tax dollars are protected. And I know, again, if you have any questions about our budget, meet with the city manager, meet with our redevelopment agency so you can understand what redevelopment is all about. Now, we are going to have to be, you know, the state of California, I don't know if you know, has eliminated our redevelopment agency, and right now we are trying to just wait and see what's going to happen. However, I have kind of an interesting proposal that I'd like to bring up now. I was going to wait till later in the meeting, but since the couple speakers brought up our budget and the redevelopment debt, I would like to possibly see about doing a Mother May I item, turning the keys of redevelopment over to the LA County, because the city of LA has done that. And if we do that, that $1 billion debt, which again is comprised of different entities, of different debts, it's not actual credit card type debt, would then be in their realm, and then we could go on to seek a judgment of some sort against the state to validate and protect our general funds that were lent to the agency by the city. I don't know if that's possible. I just want to pursue it. Maybe possibly I need to meet with the city manager a little bit more, but you know, this is a big issue that's facing our city that we need to handle in a very efficient way. And so I would like to bring that back if the council's interested in discussing something of that realm to see what the ramifications would be. And I know we can't discuss it right now because it's not an agendized item, but I would like to look into that further. So thank you.
Oh, Andy has a question. Andy?
Just adding on to what Councilmember Sanderson has indicated, you know, there's this $1 billion discussion, and that is just a misrepresentation. And I think the better way of addressing that, because I understand what you're trying to accomplish by doing that, but it really is not a debt. It's a distribution schedule. It's a distribution schedule of the future tax increment that's going that's available to the city, so we can collect part of that money back into the city to pay off potential projects that generate revenue for the city. But it's really future tax increment. It's really a distribution schedule. That's really what it is. And it varies depending on what ultimately gets approved. Secondly, there was a question or a statement made about why not look at BKK for the dog park. We did look at that. We did discuss that with EPA, and there were a number of issues, and EPA had some problems with that proposal.
Thank you. I think it went further. For one, we were trying to look at areas in parks that already had landscaping or irrigation and sprinkler systems and landscaping already in, so we didn't have to do that from scratch. Otherwise, dog parks got into the $200,000 or $300,000 range, and that's why we thought it was simpler just to look at using currently landscaped and sprinklered areas. Since Shelley brought up the loan documents, I want to make sure the City of LA did pass on all their redevelopment debt that you keep on hearing about here. They gave it to the county, and the county didn't take it. They gave it to the state. the money is not technically owed, regardless of how people try to portray it. We owe the money if we get the money. So we have to distribute it based on the schedule that was being presented to you. And a lot of it was a wish list on projects, what we wanted considered by the Department of Finance on a going forward basis, and also loans that were already in place. On our agenda, Assembly Bill, I think it's 1585, and it's on our agenda tonight, is to guarantee the loan. The state of California is passing a bill to guarantee the loans the city made to the redevelopment agency, which they're two separate whole agencies. The money the city owes as debt, and this comes up if you go to the different websites people are doing out there, the city only owes money on the Civic Center, which was done by a council in the 70s, or the mall debt, which was done as a city debt, and it was changed years later, but it was done as a city debt, and that carries on the books as a city obligation. That was done in 1989. Again, no member of this council was on the council then. If you also go to the same website and talk about Woodgate School Site, that was given to Roland Unified School District to build a school there, I believe in 1978. Roland Unified School District determined that they were not going to build a school, and under the same laws that I told you about, when a developer gives a school site to a school, they have 10 years to build the school, or it reverts back to the property owner or whatever agreement was there. There was a revisionary agreement on that property. 2 acres would go back to Umark, the developer, and 8 acres would go back to the city if they wanted it. Then the mayor, who's one of the people heading the recall for his tenant, voted not to take back the property and give it to the developer. That was done November 13th of 1984. Again, I'm not as young as Shelley, so I was not in kindergarten during some of the times. I was in college, but whether or not it was done by the council of Tennant, Bacon, Manners, Scheer, and Tice, or Chappelle, not Tice, Chappelle. I'm just saying, you have to be careful when you start looking back 20 years, 30 years on a document and trying to blame a current city council for the different things that may or may not have happened. I can say overall, regardless of who served on this council, this is still one of the best run cities around, and that's a credit to everyone who's ever served on the city council, even ones we may have disagreed with. We've always been put in great shape compared to a lot of other people. So there is a lot of confusion because we did the ropes report as required. When the redevelopment agencies were taken away from us, we had to do what's called the ropes report, and then that's the document everyone runs around with what the state told us we had to apply and tell them where they want the money going for in the future, or past obligations we may have. And to me, that's being used in not the intended format, because like we said, we have the ability to give the redevelopment agency and all of its assets to the county. The county told LA no way, and they gave it to the state, and the state took all those assets, and now the state of California has 261 redevelopment employees that are getting laid off because the state took possession of all the LA, City of Los Angeles redevelopment employees. We chose to reduce and continue as a successor agency in the city of West Covina, and we had to get rid of all of our employees but 2 to carry on our documentation so we can go through the Department of Finance audit and continue through this. But I'm just saying there's a lot of things going on out there. I would just say, please, the city has all the documents. They're just not hearsay, the actual physical documents, and they'll show you the minutes of who voted on what. Okay, we drop down to the consent calendar.
I'd like to pull number 9.
No problem.
Is that on consent?
No, it is not.
I'm sorry, I apologize. One thing, I'll make a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull item 6.
No problem.
And then I think we need to...
And I'd like to talk about item 7, so I'll pull item 7. Yep. So we have, I believe I was told Mr. Councilman Sykes, I think, wanted to pull item 2. Correct, sir?
That's correct.
Okay. So I don't know what we have left on the consent calendar. Let's go back.
Make a motion to approve the remaining items on the consent calendar.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve 1, 3, 4, 5, and 8, and, no, 1, 3, 4.
Pulling 2, 6, and 7.
Okay. And 9. Did you get all that?
And 9?
Attaway, yes, that was pulled, I thought, by you.
No, Mr. Mayor,
Oh, you pulled that back, I'm sorry. Go ahead, if you can read it back,
Okay, so-
Madam City Clerk.
You're going to approve items number 1, 3, 4, and 5. You've pulled off number 2, 6, and 7.
3, 4, 5, 2, 6, and 7. Yes, Mr. City Attorney.
that's it.
Very good, Matt. Nice and, concise. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Drop down to... I think we got 5 votes there. I think that was a good vote. First vote, and it was a great vote already. We drop down to item number 2, Councilman Fred Sykes.
Thank you, Mayor Tui. I wanted to pull this item, hoping that we can revisit some of the clauses here and the guidelines for our advisory commissions. In particular, I'm concerned with the blending of the arts and the planning. I think that what we're doing here is disruptive. And when we look to the past, we realize that before the Arts Commission was created, it was a part of the duties of the Planning Commission as far as art selection and placement. That was done by the Planning Commission. And I ask that in the interest of efficiency and simplicity, that the Art Commission be abolished and the Planning Commission should resume the duties of the Arts Commission, and that should be done as the body is presently commissioned. I'm asking that we keep this process simple, because the way we're doing it disrupts the rapport between the Planning Department and the Planning Commission. And in this era of downsizing and our layoff situation, we need this. I think we need this continuity. It is important, I think, for morale and communication. And then also, we need to keep in mind that within the year, we will be visiting every city advisory commission, and that means we'll have to do this twice with the Planning Commission. I don't think that's necessary. And then also, one of the speakers talked about when there is no meeting, that we should not be paying a stipend or a fee. So I think that's another idea that we should look at. When there's no meeting, there should be no pay. Thank you.
No question. Councilmember Herford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the speakers that came up during oral communications alluded to probably something not the general public is aware of, but during, I believe, the last closed session the City Council had, we had to eliminate some positions in the City of West Covina. We didn't know who the individuals were. We basically had to look at the titles and figure out, if those positions were funded by general fund, by redevelopment, and what the needs and the services they provide to the residents of West Covina were. In my 22 years on City Council, it's the first time we've ever had to lay off employees. And for anyone who has to lay off a person, especially in these difficult times, it's a decision you wrestle with. And just like with these commissions, I mean, things change in cities. Cities aren't as prosperous as they used to be. in our city, we're the only city in Los Angeles County, over 80,000 in population, that doesn't have a utility tax or an assessment. And that is a tribute, I guess, to the council people that have sat up here for the last 20 years, because in 1990, there was a blue ribbon committee that was formed and said we needed to put through a utility tax to fund the infrastructure improvements of the city of West Covina, and we never did. And so people in the city, they don't necessarily realize that we are the low-tax city. We're the most business-friendly city. We're the most environmentally friendly city. We have a lot of positive stuff that we do. But it's a tribute to our employees and what they do. The number of them in this city is just incredible. 5 years ago, we had 100 more employees in the city of West Covina. We've through attrition, reduced 88 employees, and we had to lay off 12 employees at the last council meeting. So times change, commissions change. I would prefer to see everything stay the same, but unfortunately it doesn't, and that's a difficult decision you have to make on the council here. I would encourage anybody who's serving on a commission now to continue to attend the commissions, stay involved. I mean, that's something that I did before I came on the council. I was a regular attendee to the commission meetings and to the city council meetings. I mean, that's really what government's about. You can serve in so many different ways, and being appointed to a commission is obviously one way, but I do want people to understand that there's people hurting, that we had to eliminate positions at the last council meeting, and it's a sad time at City Hall. It's a sad time for the state of California. It's a sad time for people that are out of work. I know I have 2 people in my family that have been unemployed, and it's difficult for them to find work, and all you can do is support them, and like any good person, we support those that are not working for the city anymore, and we hope that they can find employment or things get better and we can bring them back. Now, the good news, I think, on the front with the economy is that I think the city's revenue stream is starting to turn. Sales tax was up last year, even though it's some of our costs went up too. We have employee contracts that we're negotiating right now, and hopefully we will work together with our unions to come to some agreements that are beneficial for the future of the city of West Covina, because to be quite honest, I don't think anybody in this audience would want to pay a utility tax right now. I think it's dead on arrival, and I don't think anybody on this council would even suggest it. I don't think anybody in the city of West Covina that I know that is a friend of mine wants us to get rid of our police and our fire department and go county. I've been down that road with 2 elections in this city where they tried to go county fire, and it was voted down by a large majority of the residents of West Covina. So the alternatives to this council are you have to make change, and a lot of that change is reducing staff, reducing commissions, and I just, I feel for the employees. That lady that got up here and spoke, Sherry, I didn't know she was one of the ones who was laid off, but she works in our community services department. Outstanding lady. She came to us, I'd say 10 or 15 years ago, young gal, and just was very energetic and has done a great job for the city. But you can multiply that by 11 other employees who did a great job, and hopefully they can find employment or come back. So on the commissions, I mean, I agree, Fred, I would not like to restructure, but I think in light of the fact that we're down employees, and that's really what this is about, is the amount of time that employees have to sit in meetings and put together agendas and do things like that, this will reduce that. So I'm going to support it.
If no one else, go ahead, Fred, if you have another comment. Councilmember Sykes.
The only portion of the restructuring that I spoke about was how we were approaching the Planning Commission. The others I agree with. And I want to reiterate, I'm trying to change that portion that's dealing with our Planning Commission. That is the only portion that I'm trying to pull back from. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I may interject, council may be aware this item was approved for first reading at the March 6th meeting. So this is the second reading of this item, and therefore there cannot be adjustments or modifications to what's already proposed. It's basically approve for second reading what was approved on March 6th. and the council is not permitted to make adjustments. It would have to be something that would then be disapproved and go back for adjustments at a future meeting.
Does anyone else have any comments?
Then I would prefer that we bring this back, we review it and bring it back in a more refined manner. That's my preference. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Sanderson, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is, as Councilmember Herford stated, a difficult time. You had layoffs due to the abolishment of the redevelopment agency, and those people were paid by that agency quite a bit. And I wish the state would have looked at it a little clearer and made adjustments to the agency if they didn't like how the agency was structured and felt people were stealing from this agency. That's kind of what I've been hearing. It should have been restructured in some format to be able to keep these people's jobs. That didn't happen, so we are faced with this difficult task. However, I look at this commission as the same thing. You have, originally I had not supported the original motion because I believed we needed to cut all commissions except planning. However, I made a concession thinking, well, this is just a starting point. Temporarily, we need to do this. Until the economy picks up, we start generating more tax dollars, and the state decides what they're going to do with the income that they actually owe to the city currently. I understand in talking to the city manager a few weeks ago, we are owed approximately $1 million that they have not paid us at this point. So a lot of things are up in the air. But saying that, you're dealing with the Arts Commission, you're dealing with the Planning Commission, and you basically have 10 extremely wonderful people that you have to get rid of 5. And that's a tough choice. So I actually support the way this is written because it does allow us to pick the existing planning or maybe add one person in arts that we like. I heard one of the speakers earlier thanking us for the opportunity. The Arts Commission, I think, would make a fine commissioner in any commission. So I think that gives us a little bit more option if we choose to do that. If we don't, then, and that's kind of what I had said before, so and if we'd have to go back, and then it takes more time, and I think we really need to move on this. So I will make a motion that we approve it as read tonight. Thank you.
No problem. I agree. That's what I was trying to when I was talking to you privately, Fred, up there about this being a second reading. I don't mind coming back at a later time because I don't disagree with Joanne Wilner's comment that you should only get paid for the meetings you attend. That is how our redevelopment or housing authority works with the city. No different. You don't show up, you don't get paid that portion. But we'd have to come back and bring that portion back only. And I have no problem looking at that. I disagree with the continuity. I know the 5 may be different on the Planning Commission. Currently, the Art Commissions work with the chairman and the vice chairman or 2 appointees from the Planning Commission, so they have rotated and got to know probably 4 of the 5 Planning Commissioners if they don't know them all. Both commissions are under the direction of the Planning Department, so I think there is continuity between them all, and I believe everyone has something to offer. I believe we have 4 of our arts commissioners here, and I believe they bring their own set of traits, and this because they were put on the art commission didn't mean all of them were necessarily art experts. We viewed them as good commissioners, and we wanted to keep them involved, and we needed to place them somewhere. I know Dr. Gerald Menifee that was not his first choice to be art commissioner. I remember interviewing him. He was interested in the Planning Commission. We wanted to keep them interested overall. So I believe that happens, and I know we have, the other art commissioners here. So we can bring back the one if you want to talk about the salary. I don't disagree, but that's, again, outside of this. We'd have to agendize, do the mother may I, come all the way back through the system. I have no problem in doing that. Since we can't change it because this is a second reading, do I have a motion on this?
I already made the motion, Mayor.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Shelley?
I'm sorry, aye.
Those opposed, 4-0. Thank you. Sorry. We drop down to item number 6, which was pulled off by Councilmember Herford.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to have a separate vote on this. The speaker spoke about the chamber, and obviously the chamber is a separate organization from the city, and it's unfortunate we don't have the Chamber of Commerce any longer, but we don't get involved with that. That's something that happened within the chamber, and I know a lot of the members and would like to see them form again. However, renting out facilities, city facilities, does take time and effort on the part of city staff. You have to make sure that the keys are given out, that the place is cleaned up, and that there's no vandalism. And so I personally don't think, I don't think there's much of a need for it. We have a community room here that's not used that much. We have all of our community centers, which we lease out. So I just don't see adding 2 more facilities. So I would not support that.
No problem. I'm the one that talked about this. The only reason the buildings are currently there, and the way we rent out the community room upstairs is we do this give you a key. There are deposits and other things to ensure that it's turned back over in a cleanliness with it being clean. So I'm not so concerned there, and I think we have a lot of other groups that are out there. I mean, obviously Drexel Smith has been working with the Boys and Girls Club and the Youth Science Center, so I believe there are groups out there on top of the community groups within the area to hold meetings at, and a lot of them, these 2 buildings are more unique because they're smaller buildings that you're not having to rent out. The community center at Cameron has the one larger building, the gym, obviously, or the other side room where they do jazzercise or whatever the new thing is, Zumba dance, but I know that can be divided in half, but that's still, I don't do that type stuff, sorry. I think it's quite evident by my size, but I just think this would be worthwhile, and they can pretty much be turned over with very little work in the condition and make them tenantable facilities, community assets, community facilities, and these are not being rented out for commercial ventures. These are to our group, just like we have a lot of people that do arts, playhouse type performance. They rent our facility currently and do a lot of stuff here, and I think this would be a unique thing for a smaller format, so I have no problem with that. Anyone else?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I second that motion.
No problem. Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed?
No.
Okay, 3-1. Drop down to item number 7. I mentioned it at the meeting, the resolution supporting West Community Soccer. On top of that, there are some funds available potentially to look at. Again, restricted funds. Every time we say funds, everyone assumes you can do whatever with them. We have park funds, construction tax funds, which are used for parks and park improvement monies, and I forgot the exact numbers. I think it's 160, Fund 160, 161, and 163. They're not in the report, or I missed them. I don't have my glasses with me. But I'd like to look at using that money and establishing and working with the fields we mentioned at that time, on top of supporting Mayor Pro Tem Sanderson's West Covina Youth Soccer proposal, working with the school district, but also working within properties that we do own. Sunset Little League Field, working with both West Covina Youth Soccer and the Hustle, San Gabriel Valley Hustle team that uses that facility. Orangewood Pony Colt and the Orangewood Park in the back, working with them to jointly be able to use those facilities, and in the future working to upgrade our restrooms as soon as possible. At the pool area, if you've ever used the restrooms in the pool area, they're pretty deplorable. They're almost as bad as portables. To make them so we can get real restrooms there for West Covina Youth Soccer. And I'd like to work on top of Shelley's thing, working with that to use those restricted funds on working with West Covina Youth Soccer and the different groups over there to work out the use agreements with them.
That's a motion?
I'll make that as a motion.
Second it.
Motion and a second. I see no fingers. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Passes 4-0. Did the girl vote this time? I'll take that as an aye, 5-0. We drop down to Item number 8, options for filling vacancy at the city council seat by appointment or by calling for a special election. Mr. City Attorney, Matt.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this item was presented to the council at the March 6th meeting. Presents two options that are available under state law for filling the council vacancy. The first option is the council appointing a replacement, a temporary replacement for the vacancy. And that, if council elects to choose that option, the appointment must be done by April 21st. The second option available to the council is to call for a special election to provide for the seat to be filled by special election, which would occur at the November 6th election. And if council does wish to choose that option, the council would have to call for a special election by April 21st. So either of those two options are the options that state law does provide to the council for filling the vacancy, and it's before the council this evening for action on that item.
One question. We just had an election with Councilmember Herford and Councilmember Sykes getting elected. I believe we were told the cost of the election was going to be $135,000. What did the County of Los Angeles bill us for that last election?
The final invoice was $278,000.
For the election, so they were off by 50-something or 100-something percent.
150-some.
Okay. No problem. Mayor Pro Tem Sanderson.
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we ask for letters of interest that are signed and submitted to the city clerks. And the reason for that, doing the application process is not only lengthy, but it's difficult for our city clerk staff to be able to handle that. So I was hoping we could do some type of a letter of interest. I did ask at the last meeting that it was legal for us to do something like that. It would just, I believe, would be a lot smoother of a process. So I would like to ask the council if they would be interested in that.
I'm in favor of an appointment and a letter by interest, so if that's what the motion is, so I'll second that.
One question, under California state law, if we were to adjust council salaries, I know you can't do it for sitting council members under state law, would this still qualify the new appointment if we adjusted the salary schedule, or would they still get the full salary until the actual another city municipal election is held for council appointment in November of 2013?
Mr. Mayor, I don't know the answer to that question offhand. Without having to take a closer look at that, my first reaction would be that the appointment would be locked into whatever the salary is at the time of appointment. I'm pretty confident that's what the law would say, but I would have to get back to you to confirm that opinion.
No problem. Council. Okay, we had I believe that was a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Sanderson. Was that seconded by Herford?
Yes.
Okay. I see no fingers once again. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Those opposed, 4-0. Number 9, dog park. Mr. City Manager, who will present the staff report.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, before we move on from this item number 8, the city clerk has raised an issue. I think council should consider establishing some time frame for receiving the letters of interest, or like a cutoff time for considering those.
Our meeting, I believe, is on the 17th or 18th. What is the 17th? So we have the cutoff on the Friday before, or Thursday before, because you won't be here to present us the
Okay, you'd like to have the letters of interest included with the staff report at the second meeting in April, which would be like a week before the deadline to make your decision.
I believe we're making the decision at the second meeting in April. Am I not correct? So we have time to review the applications, or do you
want the applications by the next council meeting, which would be the first meeting?
Well, that's the first meeting in April. The 17th would be the second.
I'm just saying, the meeting we're going to take action on will be the second meeting in April, April 17th. So whatever is done, we need to get...
say April 10th for the
Thursday before the next council meeting, and that we have a time to at least review those, if you wish to do that.
Is that okay with everybody?
So
Okay.
the deadline is what date?
Deadline for letters?
Yeah, letters of interest.
Is April 10th enough time? That would be 1 week before.
To prepare for inclusion in with the staff report? Let's see, the meetings in April are April 3rd, 17th. We could include them, the packets would go out on April 12th. So the Tuesday's the 10th, that would give us enough time by the closure of business that day to have everything prepared.
Okay. That okay with everybody? April 10th? Do I need a motion to that, or can it carry by?
No, there's no objection to that, so the record would reflect that the April 10th would be the deadline for submission of the letters of interest to the city clerk's office. And just to be, I guess, extra clear on that, that would be by the close of business on April 10th is the drop dead deadline for that.
No problem. And how are we going to advertise that so we don't get beat up that it was not advertised?
We could post it on our website, we could issue a press release, we could take direction from council on how you'd like the word to go out.
That's fine.
Okay.
Do I again have consensus from everybody? That's fine?
Okay, we'll
So
post
moved.
it and a press release.
On the website.
Okay.
Yes.
Item number 9, the West Covina Dog Park. Mr. City Manager, who will present the staff report?
Mr. Freeland, give you that report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. As you're all quite aware, for the last couple of years, City Council expressed an interest in constructing a dog park in West Covina. A dog park is a facility set aside for dogs to exercise and play off leash in a controlled environment under the supervision of their owners. Parks vary in size, but typically include fencing with a double gated entry, benches for owners to watch their pets, trees for shade, parking close to site, drinking fountains, animal waste collection bags, and trash cans. Local cities provide typically one large dog park for the big dogs and a small dog park for littler dogs. Dog parks range in size from a quarter acre to well over an acre. And since the submission of the staff report, city staff has reached out to some of the local communities. And for example, the city of San Dimas, they have a large dog park, which is an acre in size, and a small dog park, which is about a half acre in size. Claremont, very similar situation as well, where it's 30,000 square feet for their large dog park, and a 16,000 square foot small dog park. And so as you can see, there's a variety of different sizes available to the city. With the limited amount of open space at West Covina Park, city staff is recommending the construction of a half-acre dog park if the city council wishes to construct one. The estimated cost for a dog park is estimated at $60,000. It is the hope of city staff that once we, if the council wishes to move forward on a dog park, that as we look at the site's current conditions, to be able to reduce that cost even more significantly, and possibly the creation of a half-acre large dog park, and perhaps maybe a 0.2 to a quarter acre small dog park, and so that we can maximize these funds. Just so people understand, the $60,000 in LA County grant funds are funds that have come from other projects, and so it wasn't a new grant application that we've applied for. What the city has done has been pretty resourceful in closing out some old grants that we've done projects throughout the city and combine these loose funds that have been available to help subsidize some of the projects here in the community. The mayor mentioned the improvements at Palmview Park that was approved at the last council meeting, and that the proposal on April 3rd to do the splash pad park at Del Norte Park. Those parks are being, the majority of the funds are using community development block grant funds, but they're also utilizing a portion of these park funds which help offset all future maintenance at these facilities. And so what we are able to do is tap into county maintenance funds that were put aside in this proposition that was approved by the voters, so that way there's about $1 million in maintenance funds that are out there for the city of West Covina to tap into. So, for example, the Palmview Park, the Del Norte splash pad, the ongoing maintenance of both those improvements will be paid for out of this fund. And that's the same thing that the city staff is looking to do here with the dog park. Now, I'm about to show you a PowerPoint of some of the what staff believes the 5 best locations if we were to do a dog park here in the community. By no means does this mean that These are the only locations. I know there's comments about the PKK landfill that the city manager did address. The other portion of the comments I would add to the city manager's comments about the BKK landfill site is that there's also no infrastructure in place up there on top of the BKK landfill. So you'd have to construct everything from parking spaces to a street to get up to the facility. So this would be literally $1 million dog park if we were to build one up on top of the landfill. So city staff, as the mayor pointed out, try to find locations where there's current landscaping and irrigation to help reduce the cost should the council wish to move forward. The first location, bring it up on the screen, that was discussed is the Shadow Oak Park. For those who are not familiar, Shadow Oak is a 25.6-acre park located on East Shadow Oak Drive, which includes tennis courts, softball fields, playgrounds, picnic pavilions, restrooms, walking paths, and the Shadow Oak Community Center. At that location, the City Council a couple years ago provided significant funding to make improvements to the lower plateau of the park, which includes access for walkers, picnickers, ADA access, and some trees. City staff is still working on finding grant funds through both AQMD as well as some county funds may be available for additional trees that we look to do throughout the community. City of West Covina has been very successful in obtaining grants for trees for what we call our urban forestry program. Some of the benefits of Shadow Oak Park, for example, is there's sufficient space for the dog park on the lower plateau with a sufficient buffer between the proposed location and residents. While the lower plateau area of the park master plan does not include a dog park, there was some support for a dog park at a community meeting in 2006. And from the staff report back at those times, there was, of the 178 people that were at the meeting that submitted voting, 26% or 46 people did support a dog park at that time. The speakers were correct in saying that there was a request that they'd rather have parking down at the lower plateau or restrooms, but unfortunately with the limited funding that we currently have, the grant funds won't be sufficient enough to provide those services. Next location is Palmview Park. Palmview Park is an 8.5-acre park located at 1340 Puente Avenue. It's on the southwest corner of Lark, Ellen, and Puente. Everybody knows it, I think, as the airplane park. That's where the current Korean airplane is still, to this day, remains. Some of the benefits there are sufficient space for dog park in the southeast area of the park. Challenges of that location is adjacent to homes and an elementary school. And during an August community meeting, residents wanted more parking and expressed an apprehension for adding new elements that may bring more visitors to that park. There's just some apprehension. There wasn't a strong opposition by any means, but there was some comments of out there possibly being a possible location, so city staff did present that for council's consideration. The next location is Gingrich Park, which is an 8.9-acre park located on Woodgate Drive. It is in the center of residential homes, includes restrooms, basketball courts, playground, and picnic pavilions. The benefit of Gingrich Park is there's a significant amount of open space to construct the dog park out there. The challenges at that location is there's no real parking other than the street parking along Woodgate and some of the neighboring streets. The next location was Del Norte Park. Del Norte Park is a 7.25-acre park located at Roland and Sunset, just north of the 10 freeway. Amenities include tennis courts, baseball fields, which are home to the National Little League, picnic pavilions, restrooms, playgrounds, a walking path, and a new splash pad hopefully coming in July to that location. And on the diagram above, the yellow is the location of the proposed splash pad that has been initially approved into the Community Development Block Grant Action Plan and will be awarded a bid at your next city council meeting in April. And if all goes well, city staff anticipate opening hopefully the first 2 weeks of July. Some of the benefits is that at the community meeting in August of this past year, residents expressed support for a dog park. However, residents felt that additional amenities should be part of an overall park expansion into the adjacent school property. Some of the concerns are that it may take up some of the the limited amount of space and open space, green space I should say, at the park, including some of the areas where some of the baseball fields may practice. And the other concern that has been expressed with Del Norte is that we're not quite sure on the approvals for the county with regards to the dog park at this location, or I should say at other locations. That's all subject to their final approval. And what we mean by that is that as we reprogram these grant funds, the county still has to give their blessing on it. So they take it to their board of supervisors. And we were out there with the county last week. They seem to be very supportive of a dog park in a location, and they were expressing some interest in doing at Del Norte and Palmview as well, since we are doing projects out there as well. So those are things that could be beneficial as we move forward. Tonight, city staff has just asked for some direction from the city council. You could possibly instruct city staff to send out surveys to some of the homeowners of the adjacent above-mentioned parks and submit the survey results in a following report. Council, if they wish, can also select a park, instruct city staff to come back for an awarded bid for the construction, not to exceed $60,000, or you can provide alternative direction. At this time, I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Does anyone have questions to staff? Seeing none, I have no problem making a motion to approve a dog park at Del Norte Park. I agree that's where we already had a community meeting, a very extensive community meeting, and there was support for it. So I heard loud and clear Shadow Oak Park residents were not really interested in this facility. So I have no problem moving forward with it. Getting our first dog park, if you've seen in the paper, there's 2 or 3 proposed this week across the East San Gabriel Valley. So I have no problem building our first dog park at Del Norte. Mayor Pro Tem Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Freeland. It was a great report. Thank you for doing all that work. And I would like to second the motion. I think this is something West Covina's talked about, and I think we can all agree that these are Prop A restricted funds. And thank you for finding those grant sources. I know my mom personally lives for her dog. That is her pride and joy. And she goes to the dog park every day, and she drives there. And she does drive there. So with this, though, I need to, I want to make sure that when we go through the process, that we handle the parking and the access, too, because I know, my mom has to be real careful when she walks with the dog and whatnot. So we want to make sure that there's no issues with that. And what I find interesting is when I went in the past for many years, I've gone knocking on doors, and one of the things I always find is people with dogs. You'd be surprised how many people actually have dogs. So I think this is a community that not only enjoys baseball, but also enjoys having a pet. So I think this is a great idea, especially because we're using the restricted funds exclusively for this type of use, and I would support the mayor's endeavors in that, and second his motion. Thanks.
Councilmember Sykes.
Okay, just so we're clear, before we vote on this dog park for Del Norte Park is where
That's where we had consensus from residents at the community meeting.
Now, we have co-ed, boys and girls activities for just soccer alone. There's about 1,000 children. And the last time I saw, they were still using the porta potties, didn't have fixed bathrooms, and that's particularly a hardship on the girls. And we also have co-ed situations with youth baseball players, boys and girls having to use porta potties. And so these funds can't be tabled until we take care of those children first. Is that what we're saying?
I don't know what you mean by that. The previous motion on soccer, there's approximately $500,000 plus in those funds that I mentioned that were for working with soccer to spend.
Okay, so we're going to take care of those. We're going to try to address those porta potties situations.
I think that's part of that. We can do a lot with $500,000.
Okay.
He wants to answer the question.
Yeah, Chris?
Thank you.
To answer Councilmember Sykes' question, I know there's been some comments this evening about the use of porta potties or restrooms for the West Covina Youth Soccer. I know our Ballian's here, he can clarify this as well. Part of the requirement of West Covina Youth Soccer to utilize the school facilities is that they have a choice of either using the school restrooms or providing porta potties. The league, it's my understanding, is chosen to provide those restrooms. So it has been a choice of the league what type of restrooms they want to provide out there for their students, or excuse me, for their users. So that hopefully that helps clarify some of the discussion too.
I have to wait till if Councilman Sykes is finished. Then I'll go to you. No problem. Mayor Pro Tem Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the staff report, I understood that this was a restricted pot of like funds that have been pulled together. And is there a deadline on that? Because you're saying that this monies would not be enough to provide a restroom regardless, and that's why I think we were looking at this option. Isn't that correct on that?
That's correct. There is not a deadline for the use of these funds. However, the longer they sit there, then more likely the county has an opportunity, I guess, in the future to take them back as we start closing out these projects.
I always thought that certain types of funds were mandated to be spent within a certain period of time, no?
Well,
yeah, most of them are. This particular one is a different type of pot.
Okay.
And the one thing I was saying about, I mentioned the pool. I believe the pool may be an eligible community development block grant with some of our other funding. I'm not sure if that isn't automatically by itself an eligible. The pool is not, but I would definitely look to use some of the money to possibly do restrooms at the pool, which would service most of arts leagues. If they had restrooms, they could get in from the outside in only for them. And like I said, there is considerable money in the previous action in those three funds to address those issues. The Sunset Little League field for soccer already has restrooms at it. Orangewood Park already has restroom facilities at it. So would this be a matter of addressing Edgewood Middle School, working in conjunction with the school district to work on the restrooms at the pool site? We just did a pool remodel just to make it for the swim season and water polo season for the school site. We went in partners and replastered the entire pool with the school district. So this is just another thing. So if there's no other question, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No.
Fiscal year 2011-2012 annual work program, artwork selection. Mr. City Manager, who will present the staff report?
Please. Mr. Anderson.
One of the requirements of the Art in Public Places section of the Municipal Code is to adopt an annual work program to spend the funds in the Art in Public Places Fund. In lieu, funds are deposited into the restricted art fund that can only be used for public art projects. And that's been discussed already some at the council tonight. There is currently $84,000 in that account. On July 19, 2011, the City Council approved the Public Arts Commission recommendation to select artwork for the installation at Cortez and at Cameron Parks. A request for proposal was released in November of 2011, inviting artists to submit sculptures for direct purchase, and the city did receive 64 applications from different artists. The Public Arts Commission met on January 30th and February 13th, 2012 to review the submittals and determine their recommended artwork. The Public Arts Commission did select 3 pieces of art for each park site. We're going to go through the ones that are recommended. So we can go to the next slide, Chris. The recommended artwork at Cortez Park is called Sports Buddies. It's by an artist named Victor Isa, and it's $12,000 to purchase that artwork. The size of the artwork is shown on the screen behind me. Go ahead to the next one. The next slide shows an aerial of the location selected at this Cortez Park. And it's a little hard to tell on something like this what the location is. if you kind of recall what the park looks like, there's kind of a knoll that goes along here. This is the senior center. This is the parking lot on the north side, the football field, and the baseball fields. There's a picnic shelter about here and another one here. So the selected location is nearer to the western picnic shelter, right at where the slope starts to drop off to the football field. Now, the thought was there it could be seen from both sides. Go ahead and go to the next one. The recommended artwork for Cameron Park is called Hanging Around, and it's by an artist named Mark Hopkins, and it's $29,000 to purchase that artwork. And at Cameron Park was a little bit easier discussion at the Public Arts Commission. The recommended location is to the left side of the walkway as you come from the parking lot and enter into the Cameron Community Center. The second and third artwork selections are also provided in your staff report, and we can go over those more if the council would like to. The purchase of the artwork does not include the installation of the artwork at the parks, and that's why the extra funds are being requested. Staff is recommending that the City Council take the following actions. Select the artwork entitled Sports Buddies for Cortez Park. Select the artwork entitled Hanging Around for Cameron Park. And lastly, authorize the expenditure of up to $60,000 from the Art and Public Places account for the purchase and installation of the two pieces of artwork. That concludes staff's presentation.
Does council have any questions of staff? Councilmember Herford.
I don't really have any questions. I think that both selections are good in the locations. I can't tell too much on Cortez Park, but I assume it's not too far from the senior center. Is that correct?
It's not too far. It's kind of, you park in that northern parking lot and you kind of go up the hill, the walkway, and it's, I don't know, maybe 100 feet, maybe, something like that.
Okay, just so people, everyone can enjoy it, so I would have no problem with both of those.
Are there any? Mayor Pro Tem Sanderson.
Yes, at the park where you have the three options, the first one is Hanging Around, the second one is the Hopscotch, and the third one is Bouncing. They chose, you're recommending of those three for that park, Hanging Around, is that correct?
That's correct. That's what the Public Arts Commission.
I guess one of my concerns, having a lot of kids myself, one is a 5-year-old, the Hanging Around one is a little concerning to me just because the kids look like they could kind of climb on it and maybe cause some trouble. Hang around, I guess. And so I'm just throwing that out there because I would prefer something that would be a little, safer. I know one of the speakers that spoke did the hopscotch, and she said that there's an area where I guess they could sit, which would be the hopscotch pads, and it looks like it's a lesser cost as well. And so I would kind of like to support that item just because it looks like safer as well as it is very nice. And then I had a question in reference to the materials used. I did read, some of them are they all bronze?
All these ones that were selected are bronze.
Okay. And the comment on that is, in the city of Covina, they have had people stealing them. As a matter of fact, we've actually had plaques from some of our parks removed and stolen because they're brass. So this is also something I don't know if how that's being addressed. Is the theft, especially at Cameron Park, because it's right where you could drive up to it with a vehicle and just go out. And where it's at Cortez, it's a little bit further away from any vehicular, you'd have to drag it, it would be difficult. And so I don't know if that, you can address how that would be addressed. Because interestingly, people will take things like this. We've had plants taken from our house, so I don't know if you could address that.
Well, these would be installed by a contractor, and similar to the installation of the statue of the Corey Lytle statue at Big League Dreams, very similar to that, where you have an artist who creates something, but a contractor who installs it. So the installation would take care of that to a reasonable degree. I think you can't ever guarantee everything. Things can always be stolen. Even if it's nailed down really tight, things can be stolen.
Is there another alternative material, I guess, is one? Because I know some of the parks were now using stone versus the bronze plaque?
In my understanding, any material has positives and negatives, and there's some really positive things about bronze. That's why so many artists work in it, and that's why some of the selections were made of bronze, because they're a very durable material. If you get into a stone, you know, there are things that can break,
Right.
and so there's vandalism issues with those.
Right.
We do have several bronze statues around town that have stood the test of time in some locations.
Right, well, I know the one at Big League James is huge,
Right.
and it's also a more secure location. I'm not concerned about the one at Cortez. I don't think that would be really difficult to remove that one. Now, does Cameron Park, the gymnasium, do they have any kind of camera systems installed currently there?
That I am not aware of. I don't believe they do.
Because I know some of our parks,
On the inside, there are cameras, but not on the outside of the facility.
well, I guess maybe that might be an option to, is there a lot of traffic? Okay.
Another
But usually they come at night, late at night, and I just don't want to see the statue stolen, so.
Well, another option, if the concern is the location, you could request that we move it further away from the parking lot, and that would make that less inviting for someone just to pull in there.
All right, thank you.
Does anyone else have questions? Shelley, to address the one issue on the McIntyre statue, it was mounted on a rock out in front of one of his buildings on Roland Avenue in Covina, and the truck drug it from where it was down the street for a while, and somehow got it loaded up and took the entire statue the way it was to the recycling center, and that's where he was arrested. Not figuring out that didn't look like a throwaway item since it was brand new. But no matter what item we get looking at a mall, there will be kids hanging on the arms, whether it's a leg kicking up in the air, the monkey type bars, I forgot what you call those, pull-up bars from the old days. I mean, to me, that will all happen. We are clearly having a lot of our designation plaques, the bronze plaques, stolen, as you see all around in other cities. They steal manhole covers, they steal the electrical wires out of your sports lighting facilities, they take signals, wiring, anything to get copper, bronze. It is amazing. All the cameras would do, if we have cameras on it, is would know who took it, but they would still take it. I mean, if you're going to steal it, you're going to drive onto the park and steal it. That won't really change it. I have no problem with going with what the commission recommended, and I do prefer bronze in this particular case over the marble plaques. I know we're going to, because they tend to be easier to replace as they get stolen in town. It's unfortunate that people do that, and it's unfortunate a recycling center takes in a bronze plaque that has names on it and cashes it in too. Mayor Pro Tem Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr. Tree. City Manager, is there these funds that are in this fund, is there a limitation on expenditure on those funds?
I'm not sure what you mean by a limitation.
A time frame, I'm sorry, like that they have to be spent.
Well, there, again, I think as the mayor had indicated, they were earmarked and paid for by development fees. I don't recall off the top of my head if there's any statutes that govern the length of time, but I would believe it'd have to be some reasonableness applied to that.
Okay. The reason that I'm asking is I'm not going to support this evening just for the fact that there was some residents that came forward that maybe we have some alternative funding sources that might be utilized, such as the Veterans Wall or whatnot, and I haven't gotten, obviously I can't get an answer on that today, so I would be not supporting this evening for that purpose. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the Public Arts Commission recommendation.
I second it.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
No.
3-1. Drop down to council members' reports. Is there any council member wishing to give a report? AB 1234 reports on travel. Item 11 was held. Is there any council member comments? Seeing none, we drop down to adjournments. Tonight, I would like to adjourn our meeting in memory of Karen Schoonover, wife of a former planning commissioner of ours, Jim Schoonover, who served in, I believe, the late 80s, early 90s. Our thoughts and prayers are with the Schoonover family. And also adjourn in memory of Gracie Abel, a longtime West Covina resident, lived on the border of Covina and West Covina. At the time of her death, she fell in November of 2010 at the Elks Lodge and never recovered from a badly broken hip. Her health rapidly deteriorated because of the injury. Services for Grace will be Wednesday, and then the reception will be Thursday after the Oakdale funeral at Hearst Ranch. Gracie Abel is the mother of John Abel Hellu Holmes. John Abel was a former school board member for West Covina Unified School District a while ago, and I know he lives in Villa Park now, but we could adjourn a meeting in memory of both of them and send our condolences.
So move.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.